Arriving at the coast of the Waterford bioregion in southeast Ireland, what do you see beyond the rocks and cliffs? Grasslands and towns bordering the deep blue sea, forests and fields and scattered houses, industrial farmlands, sheep grazing, and lakes surrounded by mountains. Looking over this landscape, you might wonder, are bees still flying? Are birds nesting in the trees and hedges? Is wild salmon swimming up the rivers? Are the fields producing healthy food for the local communities? Are the people living here happy? Do they feel part of a community? Are all characters and living species in this landscape benefiting from its bountiful offerings?
I really feel the damp of the water that's hardly to be seen, but it's everywhere. You can see trees thriving, you can hear all kinds of sounds, and it happened to be that I recently visited the peatlands in the Netherlands. They're part of the Bioregional Weaving Labs as well. They have been all cleared or been put into meadows for cattle, and I think we are settled up. Is that English? We are dealing with the problems now concerning CO2 emissions and just a huge lack of biodiversity. So here's going on what should be going on a lot of places where there's peatland below our feet. I was about to inherit money. Somebody asked me when I was looking for focus for the money, in what kind of world would you like to live and how can your money contribute to that? And me and my board of the foundation, we discussed it, and we really wanted to live in a world where nature and people are in balance and where people can stay on the place of their birth if they want to, because there's livelihood there. And but that is also an enormous goal to set for a small foundation as we were. So I was looking for partners and looking for clues how to make that work and how to really put my money to work in this field. And then I met Willem Verweda, who founded Common Land, and he explained me the 4 returns and the 3 zones and the long-term investment that's needed to bring back life. And that all appealed to me very much, and that changed me from being sort of overwhelmed by the problems to somebody who really saw this is a framework that can work, and this is sort of a language we can all use to come together. Business people, farmers, scientists, we all can use these words and these terms in order to develop a common vision. And so that was life-changing in the sense that I was a little less overwhelmed than I was.
To do something else and to bring the money back in society one way or another.
I would like to really represent the face of funders, investors, philanthropists that are mostly unknown and distant, absent in the field. And I really think that funders are stakeholders as well in the landscape.
We want to mobilize 1 million change makers that help to restore, protect and regenerate 1 million hectares of land and sea in Europe. I think the most common challenge is that we have now global and national action plans for climate and biodiversity, but how to make them really actionable on the ground. And I think that is a challenge. Everybody is working in their own silos, and a lab is bringing all these stakeholders together to work on a joint action plan on the ground. Very interesting here in the Waterford region is the emerging concepts that come out that are now really forming one portfolio of innovations that are offering themselves to financing partners to invest in. I think this model is very important to see if it works and how does it work, because then we can also inspire other regions to present their portfolio in the same way as an integrated portfolio of innovations.
This bioregion is kind of like almost like an exemplar of all that's good and bad about the global food system. So we do a lot of agriculture here. We've got very good land and resources, and so we've got a lot of farms and a lot of farming and a lot of agribusiness here too. Some of the biggest agri-food businesses in the world based here. And as you'd expect, we also have a lot of the problems that come with that. So, you know, challenges with biodiversity and the health of our soils, the health of our rivers and our seas. The opportunity to apply all of, you know, the frameworks, the innovation and the connectivity with the other bioregions to this problem in this bioregion was hugely exciting for me.
The influence of, you could say, large-scale agribusiness is definitely recognized by all as a very, important element in terms of how the system currently operates, and how also that current regime has its own difficulties in changing. As much as there is either already an existing agenda in the organization to become more sustainable, or even individuals within those organizations, the system as such is very difficult to change. So the Bioregional Weaving Lab is not trying to move the mammoth, you could say, but trying to build the new innovations. And at the same time, we see that those bigger players are also very keen and curious to pay attention to what are some other and innovative ways, knowing that not changing has an increasing amount of risks in terms of climate change and biodiversity. So more and more eyes are on sort of the innovations. So if we can cultivate those to be at the level where they can really scale, then I think we find the sweet spot between the big players and the small players. There's enough common vision and common language created now that is a source of inspiration for all of those involved. And it starts to really ripple out now in a way that you can see that people are starting to say, look, a different way is possible. We're not victims of the system we're in. We can actually really create the system of the future that we dream of.
What strikes me about the process is we're hosting, I guess, is the way we see it now. We're not like leading. We're not driving it on. I guess we feel we up to now have had a catalyzing role, but we are also just one of a group of stakeholders united around this vision. So I feel like the process so far has been very intentional. Sarah, who's the weaver in chief, I guess, is very much has been sensing what's needed in the bioregion. It's not about like top down, we're going to put all these solutions into the bioregion. It's very much about helping what's there to elevate and become the new system. So I mean, part of me thinks it's been frustrating at times, because it's nearly 3 years since we started this process, and so I like moving very quickly, so it's been a little frustrating, but at the same time I can see the benefit of it being intentional and methodical, and not parachuting in solutions from other regions, and really understanding what this bioregion needs and building trust with the stakeholders. I think that's paying off now, and so we've arrived at a point where we've got this portfolio of concepts that are ready for funding, and that's very exciting to be at that point. And I feel like we're very close to coming to a point where GIY can step out to the outer circle a little bit more now. If we can build a funding base for the backbone of the bioregion in the organization, in the bioregion, it can become its own entity, and we can just become one of the concepts in the portfolio.
I am a weaver here in the Waterford bioregion. I connect the different concepts together, and we're developing them into an investable portfolio through the Bioregional Weaving Lab. They're really just all very, very different concepts, but they're so entangled. Because, for example, here you've got an eco-centre, but it also sits in the geopark. So the geopark spreads right along the coast, and the Anne Valley comes down through it. And the geopark is another concept, and they're saying, you know, how could we make the geopark not a marketing-driven tourist attraction, but actually be a place where, because it's a UNESCO geopark and it's so beautiful, how could we use that to drive what we do, so that we become what we call a mission-driven geopark, where the capacity of the land and the value that it can give both local tourists from the city, but also international tourists. How could that be used to build a holistic, financially sustainable geopark at the same time as preserving the nature and really respecting what it can actually carry? We're here at Dunhill, which is a rural hub of micro businesses and education offerings. They're looking at how they could become a blueprint for such rural hubs in other bioregions. At the same time as they're located in a valley, and they're looking at how could the valley and all the farmers link to this rural hub and deliver both social, financial, inspirational and natural returns. So we call it a 4R valley, because it will be 4 different returns. You know, if you start thinking about all the 4 returns and about what you could do if you start thinking that you're part of a bigger system, what opportunities does that bring to make more impact and make more change? And they seem to really identify with that. They say, oh, and it's just lifting their eyes from the daily focus on trying to keep things going to saying, if we join a bigger picture, there might be more opportunities to altogether to address some of the big scale stuff, and maybe open new channels for funding or partnership or different ways of change. I've been working for a year, and now it's shown that there is huge support for it, I think, but that has to translate into something stable so that people know that we're going to be here for the long term. So the 2 stages we have to go through are becoming an independent organisation so that we can be a neutral body supporting all the concepts coming out of this equally. And to do that, we will need to have 2 posts for 2 years, which will be about 250 to 300,000, to be able to sort of set up that as a stable support platform.
What we are working on now is 3 key pillars, which is to establish a regenerative innovation hub. So we already have it in practice, but really kind of focus on how we support organisations and SMEs to become more regenerative in their practices and what they do, and how they can contribute to the landscape and the work that they do. We also have an amazing education centre that's been here for over 20 years that supports education in areas such as horticulture and agriculture, but also in business skills, in communication skills, tourism skills as well. So we're now developing out that hub to provide much more knowledge in what we're learning at the same time in the collective of how to practice in a regenerative way, in a sustainable way, and how people can understand from a farming perspective, but also as a consumer and a member of society, how they can impact. So education will be from businesses, farmers, but also kind of individuals and the general public, so we can all understand our impact on the landscape.
I think education is an underlying component in all of the projects that we saw. We saw 10 portfolios presented, and every single one had an educational component. So what our proposal is to take those new ways of doing things, those changes and those individual change makers, and create educational elements out of them that we can then deliver and expand that change. So, you know, take the learning from regenerative farming, or from, you know, the growing berries on the mountainside, or dealing with, succession in mountain farming. Take those learnings and create modules and roll them out to other people within this bioregion, but even broader. We recognise the huge amount of knowledge that exists within the broader network of bioregions. So I think an organisation like us with our capacity could engage in bringing that learning here, using the modules that are already out there within the network, and delivering them locally, whether that be within Waterford and the broader bioregion. But I think even to create a space where we could distribute and share knowledge.
But the other thing that we try and support is sustainable farming in the community, and we're extremely lucky in the Anne Valley that we have an 80-acre farm that has been worked on over the last 6 years to really restore the biome of the soil and of working with our herd to restore the biome into the land. That sustainable farming project is growing and growing all the time and having great success. So we're moving into the next phase now, where the farm is located about 100 metres from the eco-park here, an 80-acre farm, and we're going to support them with a milk processing facility on site. The reason we want to do that is they're producing this amazing quality milk. It's like a premium organic, a level never seen before, because of their practice with the soil and the way that they're operating the farm. And at present, when the milk is collected, it goes into the mix with all the other milk from around the county, and there's no differentiation for the consumer. So we know that people want to get better products. They want to know that the animal welfare is good, the land is good, and everything's been done at a really high level. But then when the product needs to be processed, there's no way to differentiate for the consumer. So we're setting up a processing facility on site. So again, it'd be right beside it, from farm to processing in like 100 metres, and the consumer will have access to this level of product that has never been seen in the Irish market before, and I've been told at a global level they haven't seen this sort of level.
We spoke yesterday about a whole manifesto for funding in Waterford. I think we identified things like longevity of projects and the idea that inspiration takes time, and allowing projects time to properly bed in, to pilot, and then to actually deliver, instead of the constant pressure from funding to deliver quite quickly. We in Dunhill have a long history of sort of blended funding. So, we are very capable social enterprises who generate their own income and in doing so provide for their social good. But what we need is a little bit of support just to bring some of those new projects out there and complement our income, but so there's we need a mixture of kind of grant funding along with maybe some philanthropy, but also loan funding, because we have the capacity to repay that, and we have proven that in the development of this site and in the development of our programme. So yeah, a blended funding approach that has longevity, I think, is going to be important.
And my message to funders, investors, is that Waterford becomes a place where nature and people can not just survive but thrive together. But not just in Waterford, the ambition is for Ireland and for Europe, for the bioregions, that it becomes a place where this can happen. Mobilising change makers is a really critical part of making this a success. And of course, there's a small number of people involved at present, but we want to stabilise that number by increasing it and growing it over time. We are very excited by the ambition to mobilise 1 million change makers across Europe, and we want to be part of that. Our population of our village is quite small, but that doesn't hold us back in any way. We have a mindset of change making, and we do want to contribute at a significant level in Waterford and in Ireland towards that ambition to have 1 million change makers across Europe.
The problem, I suppose, and the most challenging issue is this is the intensive farming landscape, and these are farmers that are farming the way they've been farming for the last 40 or 50 years. It's getting more and more intensive as they've had to compete with cheap prices, etc. So we have to change mindsets. That's the challenge, is to change mindsets and to convince farmers that the wheels won't fall off the cart, that you can farm sustainably and also have a decent income, and it's actually both of them go hand in hand. I'm a farmer myself. I'm a dairy farmer, and where I come from, it's really intensive farming landscape where farmers are pitted against each other, if you like, to make a living. And what we are trying to achieve is getting farmers to sing off the same environmental hymn sheet, that if you're a dairy farmer, or if you're a tillage farmer, or if you're a vegetable grower, that no matter what food you're producing, you're not damaging the environment, and that you're doing it sustainably. And I actually wouldn't even see it as a challenge, because coming from a farming background myself and being a farmer, I can see how achievable it is. And if there is a challenge, it'll be just to change mindsets, convincing farmers that there is a balance now, that we need to row back a small bit, that we need to give nature a chance to breed, and that as well as producing food, whether it's milk or meat or cheese or vegetables, that there's space for nature on every farm, and that that space for nature is going to contribute to a lower carbon footprint for your farm, higher biodiversity, improved water quality, and that between the two we can all make these changes. And the community themselves, the non-farmers, they have an opportunity as well. They can support these farmers by buying product that has higher sustainability credentials. That's ultimately what we're trying to do, is trying to get the consumer to buy products that are contributing to their own environmental well-being, if you like. The project I'm working on is the Bride project. We have kind of a tagline called Farming with Nature. And if you're farming with nature, it means you have a minimum of 10% space for nature on your farm. And part of the project also was being able to get the tools to measure that. So now we have a web portal that can actually accurately measure the space for nature on your farm. And then we have an app whereby an ecologist goes out and verifies the ecological quality of that space for nature. So you're not only having quantity, but you're really improving the quality of it as well. So that if you have hedgerows, that they're nice tall hedgerows, that they're sequestering carbon, they're contributing to the visual landscape, they're creating shelter for animals. It's all of these benefits. So they're higher quality than if you cut them every year. So that's what I mean by the quality. And we can actually put that quantity and quality onto a food product. It's called the FBI, the Farmland Biodiversity Index. And when you have a Farmland Biodiversity Index of 10B or more, which is 10% space for nature, and a minimum quality of B, you're farming with nature. The farmers are out there that want to make the changes, except I think the problem is actually they don't have a platform. It's a huge problem that they haven't got a voice and they haven't got a platform. There are farmers there that know that farming sustainably means making these changes, and they just need a place where they can articulate what they're trying to do and what they're trying to say. And I'd be hoping that the Waterford Bioregional Weaving Lab will be that place. I think farmers actually will make the changes, but what we really need is the industry to step up to the mark. The sustainability payments at the moment, they need to be improved. I'm not talking about the money, it's the signals that we're given. Are they really going to make improvements to biodiversity? Not at the moment. They need to change. Are they really going to impact climate change? No, they won't. They need to be stronger. They need to be delivering results. Those signals that we're given, they're not sufficient at the moment. But I really believe farmers will make the changes because they can see that they need to be made. But the industry have to play their part as well. Farmers have got huge criticism, but it's policies to blame more than farmers, in my opinion. The problem at the moment is that the connection between the farmer and the end user, the consumer, is broken. It's definitely broken. There is such a long distance between me producing milk on my farm to the end producer drinking that milk or eating the cheese or the yogurt or whatever. We need to give the consumer a better story. And I think consumers, non-farming consumers, who feel a bit frustrated at all this climate change problems that we're having, these biodiversity problems that we're having, they feel frustrated because they can do very little about it. But if they buy product that's supporting these farmers, who in turn have to make these changes, that's everybody is working together. It's giving the consumers reassurance that the food they're buying is sustainable, and it's giving farmers the reassurance that their food is going to be continuously bought because it's sustainable. So it's shortening the chain between farmer and consumer and making sure that the consumer is more tied to the farmer. The message to funders and investors who are looking at this project: if you are here today, you can hear the passion, you can see the passion. This is the key to this project. It has spent the time listening to people, bringing all the actors on board. But that is the key to this, because I've heard people saying, are they ever going to get it off the ground? But I could see all the time that, especially with climate change and people's frustration at biodiversity loss, there might be a feeling that, oh, let's drive into this and let's really, high fives and all that. this is different. They took their time. Sarah was brilliant. She listened to everybody, and this has gone on for a year. But it needed that kind of downtime and bedding in time to get everyone together and to make sure that it was going to last. You could easily come up with a brilliant project and it would be gone in a couple of months because the background wasn't done, or because there was no buy-in from all of the actors. That's done now, and that's why I think funders should be really confident that there is real substance behind this project.
The name, the Copper Coast, was invented in a pub in the village of Fenner in 1997, just kind of coming up with ways to call the place that didn't have a name before. Because it's 7 villages, and the people who came together were from 7 villages in the area, and they didn't have a shared identity. So they created an identity around the mining that happened in the 19th century. It's a very rural, remote landscape that was previously not very well known to Irish people or any tourists at all, which made it a stopover destination or an unknown place. But it is a spectacular landscape. So the local community wanted to find a way to promote their area as a sustainable tourism destination. So to do that, they got in touch with the Geological Survey of Ireland and developed a interpretation strategy around the internationally important geology that can be found there. And through that initiative, they eventually were recognized by UNESCO as a global geopark. I hope that we can develop in a way that continues to make it a better place to live, not just to visit, and we find a way to promote it, and we find agreement from the stakeholders about how it's going to be promoted and how it's going to be developed in terms of even simple things such as how the roads are going to be managed, how parking is going to be created or not created, how we're going to develop trails, how we're going to promote trails. My vision is that it will become a place where the people who live there are very strongly integrated with the concept of a sustainable development area, and it becomes something that can be used as an example for other places and scaled elsewhere in Ireland and become part of national policy. But there's a number of challenges. I think one of the biggest ones is the balance between promotion and development and sustainable development. So, for example, it's a very small rural area, and we saw after COVID a dramatic increase in visitor numbers as domestic tourists started to rediscover their landscape, and the result of that was a major increase in the rubbish on the beaches and traffic in the villages, complaints and dangerous situations where emergency services couldn't get through roads and roads ended up being closed. And local people who ended up not being particularly happy with the influx of visitors who came. We have some central or some long-term central funding, but it's not enough, and we end up with almost no money to do anything with. So, and we have a series of project obligations, and we also run a visitor centre. We maintain mining heritage, we install interpretation and maintain that, we do projects with schools, we have a whole host of responsibilities that we try to fund from what are often disparate and temporary funding sources. So we need long-term funding and a long-term vision for how that funding can be used to benefit the area. The partnership we've developed with the Romania Bioregional Weaving Lab is absolutely fantastic, because it's a way for us to develop a working partnership with a similar organization that shares the same kind of goals as ours, and through that we've put in a common application to a European funding stream to share knowledge around civic engagement and to do a transfer of young people, which we hope will succeed. And even if it doesn't succeed, the partnership is there now. I would say to funders to plan for the long term, not to look at 4 years or 5 years, but to think 10, 20 years out and see how success is going to last generations.
I work in the National Biodiversity Data Centre. So it's a national centre that manages information on wildlife, but it's based here in the bioregion. So we have this vision to create just this transformative change for nature. So within the centre we manage information on nature. So we have data on where important habitats are, where important species are. And we've also got this separate initiative which is really action-based. It's called the All Ireland Pollinator Plan, and again it was developed from the ground up here in this bioregion within the National Biodiversity Data Centre. So we have this vision to bring these two systems together so that we can have one system where people can see where the important habitats are, they can see where biodiversity hotspots are, they can see where rare species are, but at the same time they can map the action that they as an individual are taking. So it really empowers people to do something about nature. Maps are so important, and you're right, it's difficult until you can actually visualise something, what it is that you're doing and the impact that you're having. And sometimes I use this story, we've got 80 different solitary bees in Ireland, so these are little tiny bees, and they fly about 200 metres from their nest to find food. And when you start visualising that on a map for people to say that if your spot here is solitary bee friendly, there needs to be another one within 200 metres, and it's when people see that on a map that they understand the scale of what needs to happen and they can understand the impact that they're having. So if your area is biodiversity friendly, there's another 200 metres away, suddenly the landscape is opening up for solitary bees and for all other biodiversity. So it's having these maps and these visual tools that help people exactly to visualise it and to understand the impact that they can have. People know nature's in trouble, but they don't feel empowered to do anything about it. So this system provides them with an opportunity to do that. You feel empowered, you're doing your bit, and you can see people around you doing their bit, and that's creating this network or mesh or corridor, and everyone's contributing. We can make the bioregion more nature friendly. The financial benefits to that would be enormous in terms of ecosystem services, in terms of being a pleasant place to live, and really I think the sky's the limit. Within the National Biodiversity Data Centre as an institute, we can play an incredibly important role to bridge the people on the finance side with the action within the bioregion. So it's really important as all these initiatives are rolled out, incredible initiatives happening across the region, that you track what's happening with those, that you track the positive impact, whether it's on nature or anything else. And I think that we do offer, that bridging role to show the positive impact that's having from the investment that's coming into the region. I'm going to say please invest, because the potential is huge. This is a package ready to go, and if it had that impetus, if it got that seed funding, the impact that we could have here in this bioregion is huge, and the lessons that we could learn, and the learnings that we could spread elsewhere are absolutely enormous. So I think we're on the cusp of something huge, and I hope the investors see that and help us realise that.
Previously, before we became organic, we would have used chemicals, and it just didn't sit right. It felt wrong. Richard would come back. He'd been out, spraying on the fields, and he'd come back and he'd seen ladybirds and felt that it was wrong. And it just didn't instinctively. It didn't feel right. We were going to be using this for food, and you just don't. It just wasn't right. We just, ultimately felt this was a better way to go.
Like last year, it was the middle of a drought, and farmers were rushing to cut their corn because the moisture in the grain was going down into single figures. And I went up to take a look in one of the driest fields we have, and I put my hand down through the green cover of it, and the soil was moist, and there was actually a worm in my hand, in the middle of a drought. So it just shows that the power of nature to protect us, and to really sustain us, whether it's a drought or whether it's a flood. It's a great, it's pretty powerful, I think.
Richard's lived here all his life. I've joined him 25 years ago, and we run an organic farming business, which is mainly tillage now, and we're involved in seed saving also. We have an online business where we sell our grains to customers all around Ireland.
We've always looked to try and do right or do good, whether it's whatever enterprise we're in, but we went into organic 14 years ago, and it's the best decision we've ever made, really. I never enjoyed farming as much as I do now, and it was difficult in the earlier years because I didn't understand the direction I was going in. I didn't have a focus or a start to follow. Now it's very enjoyable, and it's very empowering that you're improving each year and you're on the right track. We're on a journey now and on a road I think I'm very happy to be on.
The Bioregional Weaving Lab is a new concept to us. We've discovered it in the last 8 to 10 months. It's been amazing. It's wonderful because you meet a lot of like-minded people, and the whole idea of coming together and working together for the betterment of the environment, the food, the people. It's a great discovery for us and we're delighted. Well, we presented as a portfolio of new farmers, new farming and new farm ideas. And the portfolio really is to just remind everyone that there is a different way of farming that's more environmentally friendly, that's more satisfying, that's healthier, and it's just the whole concept of from the bottom up, from the soil, start at the soil and work your way up. It's just a benefit to everyone, and that's how we presented it. Like there can be other farmers, we're not the only farm, and that's what the weaving is about, is to bring all that together. My message to funders and investors is that the Bioregional Weaving Lab can benefit everyone. If it can benefit the farmer, the community, the whole environment, both from the ground up. It involves everyone, and you'll have social benefits. You'll definitely have health benefits because of a healthier environment, healthier food, healthier atmosphere, climate change. All of it's all interlinked. It's all part of the one big web of getting things in the environment back to nature, back to what's right and back to what's best and healthy for everyone.
One of the really, really cool things that I think is starting to happen is that, the exchange of ideas and innovations within the bioregion and also from outside the bioregion coming in. And we've seen examples of that happening already in the bioregion. That's really exciting, but the idea that we could take projects from other countries in the EU and bring them here is really exciting. And there's one example that we feel is both needed and wanted here and is already being done somewhere else. So there's an Ashoka fellow I know, I've got to know very well through this process, who runs a project, apologies to Dutch people everywhere, called Hirabura, I think is how you pronounce it, and it basically means gentleman farmer, but I describe it as like a really advanced form of community supported agriculture where you actually the organisation purchases land banks and purchases farms and then employs the farmer to grow and rear what a particular community needs. And we're really interested in bringing that concept to Waterford, to this bioregion, and certainly from the workshops we've done, when we ask consumers the kind of things that they want, they really do want that, and so I think there's a demand here for it as well. Like I think things have changed a lot in the funding landscape over the last couple of years, and I think we're moving away from this very sort of really strict KPI approach where foundations come in and they want you to do this and this and for a particular amount of money, to a much more trust-based philanthropic model in particular, and also I think that major funders are understanding that system change is complicated and it's complex and it takes a long time, and so they need to invest in that and understand what an area needs, rather than dictating it. So I think it's hugely attractive to funders. Potentially, we've seen that from the interest today, and that's really exciting. So I can absolutely imagine a scenario where we have this fund that's been invested into the centre of the bioregion that we can then use to help fund all these amazing projects. And I think the first job is to make sure that the entity, whatever it looks like, is supported, so that there's a small number of people there that can do this work, because we all know without that it won't happen. And I think once we get that right, then the individual concepts can hopefully get that funding they need to really elevate and change the system.
I am one of the 20,000 people over 65 years of age in the Waterford bioregion. We are third-agers, and we are all part of social networks. Imagine the reach. There are 20 active retirement groups alone in the city. Between the city and the county, we have close to 800 people active in active retirement groups. Can you imagine the potential? And we have other networks. We have garden clubs, we have music clubs, we have the Meals on Wheels deliverers, vast legions of volunteers, all willing, all having the potential to be change makers. We come from different walks of life and bring the experiences of different professions and jobs with us. They all link with one or more of the four returns. People have worked in the financial world, in the natural world, in farming and fishing, in public planning. So those are among the four returns. But above all, older people have a special talent of bringing inspiration in an intergenerational way, working with younger people as well. I think there is a huge potential for a return of inspiration, which is perhaps the return most needed at this critical stage in our lives. Help us in the Waterford bioregion to remove the blinkers that my generation either put on themselves or have been put on by society. Help us remove that, and we will skill ourselves to be effective change makers through a suite of training exercises. I am 85 years of age, and I am supposed, if I listen to some scientists, I am supposed to feel older than I am. But hey, after 2 days with the Waterford bioregion, I feel re-energized and feel younger even. Hey scientists, I feel younger. If we let our imagination run wilder, what would we see if financial flows were visible in such a landscape? Where is wealth accumulating? And what kind of wealth? Natural, financial, and social wealth. And what about inspiration? Are people change makers and taking agency? Who and what is benefiting? Are there blinkered mindsets causing long-term damage? And is anyone investing in the long term for a joined-up, regenerative future where everyone thrives?
I recognise that the planet is warming because of climate change. We also know here in Ireland and across Europe that biodiversity is declining. The people who are here at this conference today are people who are change makers. They're rooted in their communities and they want to make change. And I want to hear what they have to say. I love the concept of weaving. We need everyone working together. So we are part of nature, just like the spider. The web is not only catching its prey, but it's also catching seeds that are moving. We want to be part of that web across not only our bioregions, but across Europe, across the globe, to work together as communities, so from ground up, but as I was saying today, also from top down, that we are influencing and we are trying to do our level best to get people to acknowledge that we are in a time of climate change. We need to divert public money across the European Union away from environmentally harmful subsidies. I would say to funders and investors of today, do a self-audit. Just who are you? What are your beliefs? What are your values? What's important for you and your families for the future? So start from there and then decide when you're putting money into different projects. Are you putting it in a genuine project that will help cool and green the planet?
Absolutely, I think it's an emerging opportunity. I think funders and investors who are taking up a landscape approach are at the forefront of, let's say, conservation finance, environmental finance, nature-based solutions in general, and beyond that actually. It's new, so organizations coming in can actually be amongst the first innovators in finding the approaches that would work. Again, there isn't a one-size-fits-all solution, but taking an approach that considers locally grounded initiatives and a place-based approach at the core is significantly more effective than doing everything project by project. And so there's a huge opportunity to experiment. And I think funders hopefully can be willing to be flexible with what that could look like and with the constraints and requirements that they typically have, in order to also channel and maybe catalyze, let's say, investors who might be a little bit more skittish because of their own particular constraints.
I think the hesitation with this is that it's such a complicated problem that requires a really nuanced solution, and that's hard to communicate in a really concise, quantifiable way. And there's resistance to that. I think there's a need for more of a mindset shift. We are in a unique position where we both fundraise and give out money, so I can appreciate both sides of the story. And if I was speaking up to our donors, I think the first thing I would say is to allow for maybe more innovation and more risk than they would historically have thought for. It's just such an urgent issue. We need to be throwing every possible solution at the problem, and so we can't wait any longer. Projects have to get off the ground.
I love how the BWL project is all about people who are already making so many amazing changes, and it really ties in special people who are innovative in the way they think and actually take the time and energy to make change. And I'm delighted I came across it for that reason, because it's hard enough to find these kinds of projects, and especially to get involved in projects and to find work in projects which feel impactful and meaningful, because a lot of the jobs out there kind of, they might be in the fields of sustainability, but really you don't feel a huge sense of impact. You might be on a desk in an office and not actually having the level of impact that you want on the ground. So something like the Bioregional Weaving Labs is really inspirational for me.
When I met Sarah, I think only just a year ago, and she told me about the Bioregional Weaving Lab and what's going on here in the region, I sort of intuitively thought, we need her and we need to fund the work that she's doing. So, but actually it was just intuition, and it was also me funding a concept of the bioregion. And now I'm here for almost a week already, and I just see this concept being turned into concrete initiatives and concrete collaboration. I see how the people get back a sense of belonging when working together. It's really important, but it's also difficult because it's not a clear project that funders are funding when they provide in the salary of Sarah. So that might be sort of difficult for some egos, not to invest in a project, but to invest in a sort of invisible process that's enormously important and at the base of all the projects that can arise. I have sort of developed an eye for that, so we are sort of sponsoring more posts of people. Yeah, hopefully the region is taking over her paying, because the region should not need people like me. Being a wealth owner since only 2 years, I've met a lot of men and women, and I have the experience that the theme of regeneration is really a sort of a feminine thing. It's about creating life, what we've been doing. Men, of course, are also creating life, but I think men are more involved also in creating this life in competition, whereas women are more involved in collaboration, coordinating things, intuition, and also inclusion. And I think these are crucial notions and crucial dynamics for us to be able to revive land and community, and revive our inspiration as well. I'm busy with writing sort of a manifesto that we for now call the Feminine Finance Feast, and we would like to create a huge network of women's circles in which we support each other, share our experiences as funders, share our experience in how difficult it is to extract your money as a woman from the family wealth that's all been managed by your father, your brother, your nephews. So we want to support them in that as well, and then offer things, initiatives where you can invest in or donate to or be a part on another level, because I think there's so much knowledge and experiences. I think me as a former writer, I have so much to offer the network because I am a writer. And all these women have all the other huge qualities and experience that if we put that together, we can really make something happen.
Let's shift our perspective and look into the future we all want. It's time to become part of this movement and invest in bioregions, in whole landscapes and communities. It's time for each of us to be a change maker.